It all started with a garden gnome. Not a 20-foot inflatable Santa. Not a flashing neon sign. Not a yard full of rusted cars. Just a garden gnome. My wife had found him at a flea market, red hat, fishing pole, big goofy grin. She thought he was adorable. We placed him near the roses, and that little guy instantly became part of the family. But apparently, to the homeowners association, we had just committed treason. 2 days later, I opened our mailbox to find an envelope with urgent HOA notice stamped on it. Inside it read, "Dear homeowner, you are in violation of HOA Rule 14.7. Anthropomorphic lawn decor is strictly prohibited. Fine, $75. I laughed. My wife laughed harder. $75? For a fishing gnome? We tossed the letter in the trash, thinking it was a mistake. But oh no, this was only the opening shot of what would become a suburban war. Because in Karen's kingdom, our HOA president, garden gnomes weren't just tacky. They were a threat to property values. And if we didn't learn that lesson, Karen was going to make sure we paid for it. Literally. The trash had barely been collected when round 2 arrived. Another official-looking envelope. This time, $150. The violation had doubled for failure to comply. Attached was a photo of our gnome, circled in red Sharpie, like we were under FBI surveillance. My wife read it out loud, laughing so hard she cried. Do they think we're running a black market gnome ring? But I knew one thing. When it came to Karen, laughing wasn't enough. We needed evidence. So I grabbed my phone and started documenting everything. It only escalated from there. Karen began her own little patrol, walking her dog past our house 3-4 times a day, snapping photos like some suburban paparazzi. One afternoon, she actually stopped my wife in the driveway. You know, Karen said, squinting at the gnome like it had personally insulted her. This thing is dragging down the whole neighborhood. My wife, bless her, replied without missing a beat. Funny, I was about to say the same thing about your attitude. Karen stormed off in a huff, clutching her dog's leash like it was a weapon. That's when I knew, this wasn't just about a gnome anymore. This was war. When you're up against a power-hungry HOA president, you have 2 options: cave or fight smart. I chose option 2. I dug out the official HOA bylaws, 50 pages of pure bureaucratic nonsense. Bedtime reading at its finest. And oh, the treasures I found. Yes, Rule 14.7 banned anthropomorphic lawn decor. But Rule 9.2? That one clearly said, no structures or ornaments exceeding 2 feet in height shall be displayed outdoors. Guess who had a 3-foot pink flamingo visible from the street? Yep, Karen herself. I snapped photos. Next discovery. Rule 5.4 demanded that all mailboxes must be painted in neutral earth tones. Ours was brown. Guess what color Karen's was? Baby blue. I added another photo to the evidence pile. And then the cherry on top. I checked public county records and found that Karen hadn't paid her HOA dues in 3 months. There it was. The holy trifecta. Hypocrisy, hypocrisy, and hypocrisy. I organized everything into a binder labeled, tabbed, color-coded. If Karen wanted to play HOA dictator, fine. But I was about to become her worst nightmare. A calm, reasonable man armed with receipts. The monthly HOA meeting felt like walking into a courtroom drama. Except everyone was holding Starbucks cups instead of legal briefs. Karen sat at the head of the table, glaring at me like she already had the verdict written. The room buzzed with neighbors pretending to be neutral but clearly desperate for drama. Karen opened with her best official voice. We have a serious violation threatening our neighborhood. Mr. and Mrs. Smith have repeatedly refused to comply with HOA guidelines regarding prohibited lawn decor. That's when I stood up. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam my binder. I just calmly flipped it open and slid a photo across the table. Karen, I said, this is your flamingo. It's 3 feet tall. Rule 9.2 says no outdoor ornaments over 2 feet. The room went dead silent. Next, I pulled out a photo of her blue mailbox. Earth tones only. Unless blue suddenly counts as dirt. A few neighbors snorted. Finally, I produced the records of her unpaid dues. Seems like someone isn't following the rules they're so eager to enforce. Karen's face turned crimson. She sputtered. That's irrelevant. But it wasn't irrelevant. It was the beginning of her unraveling. Humiliation doesn't sit well with people like Karen. A week after the meeting, she escalated in the most absurd way possible. She called the police on us. Yes, the actual cops. We were sitting on the porch sipping sweet tea, our gnome proudly watching over us when the squad car rolled up. Karen came strutting over like she just summoned reinforcements. "Officers!" she yelled, pointing at us. "They're refusing to comply with HOA rules. This is harassment of the entire community. Arrest them." The officer glanced at me. His face froze. Then with the world's most awkward smile he said, "Judge? Is that you?" See, fun fact I hadn't mentioned. I serve as a local judge. This particular officer had stood in my courtroom 2 weeks earlier for a traffic matter. I nearly choked on my tea trying not to laugh. My wife covered her mouth, eyes wide. I stood up, calm as ever. "Officer," I said, "this is a civil matter, not a criminal one." He nodded. "Ma'am," he told Karen, "the police don't enforce HOA rules. Stop wasting our time." Karen. She looked like she'd swallowed her own flamingo. Word spread faster than wildfire. By the next emergency HOA meeting, half the neighborhood showed up. Some were there for justice. Most were there for the show. People started airing their grievances like it was open mic night. Karen fined me for having my recycling bin out 10 minutes late. She yelled at my kids for riding bikes on the sidewalk. And what about her flamingo? The room turned into a full-on mutiny. Karen tried to shout over everyone, but the more she talked, the worse it got. Her unpaid dues, her blue mailbox, her flamingo, neighbors piled it all on. Finally, one board member cleared his throat. Motion to remove Karen as president? Hands shot up everywhere. It wasn't even close. And just like that, Karen's suburban reign of terror collapsed. She sat there, pale and furious, clutching her binder of citations like it could save her. But it was over. When the meeting ended, neighbors came up to shake my hand. One whispered, "That gnome's a hero." I couldn't have agreed more. After Karen's fall, things shifted. The HOA passed new rules. Fines had to be board approved. Notices couldn't just come from one person. And there'd be a community vote before major aesthetic changes. Translation: no more dictatorships. My gnome? He stayed. Not only stayed, he multiplied. One by one, neighbors started placing their own gnomes in their yards. Soon, our street looked like a gnome army preparing for suburban battle. As for Karen, her flamingo mysteriously disappeared one night. I'll deny involvement to my grave. Rumor spread that she tried to get the board reinstated in her favor, but no one took her seriously. Within 3 months, her house had a for sale sign. The day she moved out, the whole block celebrated. People waved from their driveways like it was a parade. My wife raised her glass of sweet tea and said, "To the gnome that started a revolution." Now every time I walk past that little red-hatted fisherman, I swear he looks smug. And honestly, he deserves it. Because in the end the gnome won. And suburbia has never been more peaceful.